you don't miss the intro. Perfect. You should get a little notification pop up at the top of your screen. So thanks everybody for joining this afternoon. So delighted to welcome Nick and also Harry, who's going to be our host for this afternoon. So this is our 4th session as part of the Careers and Conversations series. So I know some of you will be aware of this already, but for those of you that aren't, Career Ready, we're a charity right across the UK, and our aim really is to connect young people with the world of work. So normally, if we weren't in lockdown, we would do face-to-face activities, excuse me, such as mentoring, masterclasses, internships. As you can imagine, we're a little bit limited in terms of what we can do face-to-face at the moment. So we recently ran an online skills festival from April to June, which was really successful, and it showed that we're all adapting really well to using the technology to continue connecting young people with employers. So the Careers and Conversations series was launched, and because we are going to be recording these sessions, hopefully there'll be great resources for students to watch back in the future. So I'm going to hand over to Harry in a second. So Harry is a Career Ready alumni, so he's been through the Career Ready programme. I'm sure he might share a few insights as we go. He's going to be interviewing Nick Newman this afternoon. So thank you both for joining, and I'll hand over to Harry if that's okay.
Hello everyone, you're right. Hi everyone, and welcome to the 4th Careers Ready powered conversation powered by Permira Foundation. As none of you probably know, get to know me a bit now. My name's Harry Lyons. I graduated from the Career Ready programme back in 2017 at St Michael's Catholic College in Bermondsey. I'm currently now working at Bloomberg as a network engineer, and I'll be chairing this event. So can you all just please make sure you're all stayed muted and your cameras are off during this session? Thank you. This event will be recorded as well for the Career Ready, so if anyone who can't join today can join later on or see the video later on. Today we'll be having a conversation with Nick. Obviously, he is a part of the defence and security expert at PA Consulting, leading accounts and deliver work in the UK Homeland Security arena for security and law enforcement clients. So, hello Nick. It's nice to see you again. Nice
and you?
So I'm just going to ask you a few questions if you don't mind. So first of all, can you tell us about your role in the organisation that you work for and how you got into that position?
Of course, yeah. So PA Consulting is a technology and innovation consultancy. I think many people will have heard of the big name consultancies, KPMG, PwC, Deloitte. We're very similar to them, but their focus tends to be financial audit. Ours is very much technology. I lead our division, as you've said, that looks at homeland security work. So everything really to do with counterterrorism, serious and organised crime, measures to protect the public. So just to give you a snapshot, the sort of work I'm doing right now, we're helping set up the Joint Biosecurity Centre, which tracks COVID infection. I'm bidding to do some work with Ofcom, who will set up the regulator to look at how we regulate online harms on the internet. So, stopping material like terrorist material and child abuse material finding its way onto the internet. So, really broad and diverse range of work.
Big, broad, yeah. So how did you actually lead into that position then? So how did you start? How did you get into the position you are today?
Sure. Well, going right back to the beginning, my first career was in the Royal Air Force. So I spent 20 years in the Air Force. I left in 2005 and came straight into consultancy, and I actually joined PA immediately from the Royal Air Force. So I've had 2 careers, 20 years military, 15 years now in industry. When I joined consulting, I sort of moved into that defence and security space, but I moved quite quickly to the security side. I mean, I'd had 20 years doing defence work. I'm still passionate about doing stuff that makes the world a safer place, makes us feel like we're doing something that's helping the country, but doing it in the security space gave me a whole new set of challenges.
Okay, lovely, thank you. What best and worst advice careers advice would you give if you were leaving school? What would you go nowadays? I know you went straight into the army and all that, but like the military, but what would you give nowadays?
Well, I mean, we chatted about this a few weeks ago when we first met each other, and funnily enough, the the worst advice I got when I left school was also the best advice by accident. You know, when I was doing probably A levels, I was good at maths. I thought I might go into banking because banking must make sense.
Must be good at it.
Must be good, yeah. And a friend of my parents took me up to the bank in London, and it was the most boring day I've ever spent. That sort of ruled that out. And then a police officer came and talked to us at school. That really inspired me. I think I needed to be doing something operational. My careers teacher then said, well, you don't want to join the police. You should join the military, perhaps join the military police, get a commission as an officer. And then when you've done that, say for 6 years, you could join the police, and that'd be a much better way to go into policing, which is complete rubbish. But it meant that I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. And so I went into the military careers office. It wasn't something I'd thought about before. I went in, I picked up the brochure, and then as I started looking at the brochures, I learned much more about what Defence had to offer, the Royal Air Force in particular. And I actually ended up joining the Royal Air Force Regiment. So I had a very unusual route into this, but I guess the conclusion is just kind of follow the thread of this advice, see where it leads you, see what the opportunities are. I think that's the most important thing, is to really open your mind to what is out there, and remember that your careers teachers might not know what the modern world of work looks like. They might not realize all the opportunities that are there for you. So really be open-minded to what the opportunities are.
I feel like that's what I've done as well. When I was leaving school, I wanted to go to uni. Most of my pals were going to uni, and I just thought, I'd done the internship with Career Ready at Citibank, and I felt that I wanted to do an apprenticeship, so that's why I went straight into Bloomberg and done it that way. And I can't say I regret it. I mean, I love what I do as well. And I think always be optimistic about it.
And I think, we touched on this earlier, but I think it's important. I didn't go to university. I left school at 18. I joined the Royal Air Force at 18. I was first of all, later on in my career, I started doing Open University, which was a great opportunity. I was very fortunate that the Air Force then sponsored me to go to university when I was about 31. So I was ready for it then. I knew what I was passionate about. I worked really hard at it, but of course I had the stability of a career behind me already. It gave me an accelerated start in my career. And I've got 2 kids. My son's 23, my daughter's 24, my daughter's 22. My son did an apprenticeship and my daughter went to uni. So between the 3 of us, and my wife's the nurse, so she did her degree qualification later on as well. So plenty of different routes into the world of work.
Yeah, definitely. But obviously uni is also, you wanted to do that as well. You wanted to tick that off your list, and you said.
I think the important thing was having the confidence to not feel pressured to go to university at 18, because at that time, I was still uncertain about my career path. There wasn't something that really inspired me and felt that 3 years investment was going to pay me back, in terms of helping me into the career I wanted. But later on in my career, I kind of went the other way around, which is thinking, well, actually, everybody I'm working with seems to have degrees, and I think I'm intelligent enough to get a degree. So actually, I'll just invest in my own time to sort of catch up, and sort of have that, piece of paper that says you've attained a certain level of achievement. But actually, and I'm sure that did open doors. I'm sure that helps to, make future career choices later on in your career, but at the time it didn't hold me back at all.
Yeah, of course. So did you always know what you always wanted to do? Did you always know you wanted to do what you're doing now?
Not at all, no. I think that if I look back on my career, my military career was marked out by generally 2-year tours. If you're having a good if you're having a career as an officer, it's different if you go in, as a soldier or airman, or naval rating. But they try and move you between operational jobs and what they call staff jobs. So working in Whitehall, doing planning or HR or that sort of thing. But what they're doing is they're giving you exposure and experience in different parts of what it takes to run a big organisation. And so I generally sort of, every 2 years of my Air Force career was another job. I was always with the same employer.
It kept you on your toes as well, didn't it?
Yeah, it does, but it gives you massive variety, and it teaches you that, you land in something new, you invest the time to get up to speed quickly.
Yeah.
The second half of that year, you're starting to be quite productive. The second year, you're really productive. You know what you're doing. You're on top of it, and then of course, by the end of that year, you're starting to think about the next role. I've carried that with me into my business career. So I've got colleagues who, from the minute they left the military, they've done the same job for the last 15 years. I think in consulting, I've done something different every 2 years as well, because I just need that. I don't need to be changing employer to get that sense of something fresh, something that's going to energize me, something interesting.
Keep learning that way as well, I feel, when you do that. If you keep changing, not change up your career, but I mean, still change up a few things that you're actually doing. It keeps you optimistic. It keeps you like you feel like you want to keep learning, and that's sort of the main part, especially not even when you come out of school, but when you go into work, you're still learning. It's not like you're expected to know something. You are still on the job learning, pretty much.
Yeah, so I'm grinning because a couple of days ago, my daughter said, "I can't wait to finish my uni finals because then I don't have to do any exams ever again." And my son said to her, "You've got to be kidding! You never stop. There's always something new to learn, another exam, another qualification. It is whole career learning."
So obviously, going back to you went to your careers advisor and you see the brochure of your first ever job. But how did you actually get your first job? Was there like the interview? What was the interview stage and all that did you face?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is if you have the opportunity, make it personal. Don't just be a CV on a piece of paper. When I was writing my CV for to come into PA consulting, people would always say to me, "They only read the first page, really," and I was so offended by that. You put your whole life on 3 or 4 pieces of paper, and I couldn't believe you only read the first page. Now I recruit people, I know that you make your first impression off that first page, and so it's got to be really good, and so if you can create a personal contact, you should do that. So the first thing I did was I walked into the careers office. Now of course the military have that, but if people want to come and meet us, make contact, come and say, any chance we could have a chat about what the career's like. I always say yes to that. I always find somebody that would be good for people to talk to, because that personal connection is really important. That then led me to the choices in the military. When I expressed an interest in the RAF regiment, the careers officer said, "Well, actually, I've got some friends there. Would you like to go and spend a few days with them?" Yes, I bit their arm off. I spent 3 days up in North Yorkshire, trudging around the moors with a bunch of young officers on patrol, just chatting to them, finding out what the job was all about, talking to the staff and who'd been in for longer. From that minute onwards, I never looked back. I was passionate about that career. I was going to get that career at all costs, which meant I studied, I read the news, I understood current affairs. I think somewhere my mum's still got the sort of scrapbook of newspaper articles about what was going on in the world. That sort of intellectual curiosity about what it means to be in that job, I think is really important and really marks out the people that you want to hire from the people that are just average.
Yeah, of course. You've got to be more personable, I believe, as well. So obviously you've had a big major careers, and you've only obviously had 2, but you've obviously had to face some barriers or challenges, especially in your career and your personal life. You've got to. I mean, it isn't easy for anyone. So how did you deal with it?
Yeah, and I've only recently started talking about this, and I think it's a sign of the times, and it's a positive that we now talk about mental health. But I had a breakdown in 2002, so it's a long time ago, and there were a whole set of experiences that led up to that. Very, very high pressure of work, a lot of operational stuff going on. Operating in very difficult parts of the world as a military officer. Having soldiers killed. It wasn't post-traumatic stress disorder. It was just the stress of lots and lots of things piling on top of me over about 2 years, and in the end I just sort of fell over, basically. First of all, it took me 15 years to admit to that.
It's very hard, especially for someone. And I say this for someone who come out of the military, who's always seemed to be tough. I mean, to open up about it. I mean, thank you for that.
No, and it's really important, because the thing I want to get across to my staff is that none of us are superhuman. We're not. Just because we've sort of become senior executives in a big business doesn't mean any of us are Superman. We've still got the same pressures on us. We've got family lives to balance with work. We've got big, pressures from our clients, and some of us have experienced real difficulty with that. And if we talk about it and we're open about it, it removes the stigma. And it makes people realize that even if the worst comes to the worst and you do succumb to that sort of difficulty, that you can come back from it. You come out the other side, and you come out of it so much stronger. The way I describe it to people is stress. Your personal resilience is like a bouncing ball. Each time it bounces, it loses a bit of its ability to bounce back. And if you keep bouncing it, eventually it just doesn't bounce back, which is what happened to me. Eventually, I just couldn't get back up again. But then that meant there was a red line. There was a line that I shouldn't have exposed myself. I knew I wasn't feeling very well. I knew I was getting stressed. I knew I was getting irritable. That means you're being irritable with your family. It means you're being irritable with your colleagues. And I knew it was happening, but I couldn't rationalize it until it was too late. The valuable thing for me now is that I can see it in myself and I can see it in my colleagues, and I just jump in. If it's me, I just sort of stop. Go for a walk. Shut the laptop and go and do something different. Just anything, just to give yourself the space to recover a bit. If it's my colleagues, might ask them to take a few days off. Just or find someone else to come and help them with the work for a while. Just to protect our people and more importantly to protect yourself. So I think that's the toughest thing that's happened to me, and it's the thing that I'm most passionate about talking about now. Otherwise, it remains a stigma.
Oh, especially in just current time as well. Mental health is a big, massive thing. I mean, even Bloomberg, we have mental health seminars pretty much every other day, just so we're all on board. Because, I mean, it is very hard in this situation, and especially with the current affairs. But when you was 18, I mean, exactly. And when you was 18, did you think you'd be in the position that you are today? I mean, like from that mindset to what you are now, did you ever think you'd be there?
No, not in a million years. No. I mean, I grew up on free school meals, and so the decision not to go to university was partly vocational, but it was partly financial. I'd got younger brothers and sisters. I didn't think they would get the opportunity, and I knew it would be a financial strain on my parents. So to be blunt, I was just trying to get a job and not be a burden on my parents and my brother and sister. It was that simple. I realized this passion to be in the armed forces, and that was great, because if there's something you're passionate about and you care about, the way you prepare for it makes all the difference. And I think that is what got me that opportunity. Once I was in, I'll be honest with you, I was more interested in enjoying the opportunities it was giving me. I mean, I listen to young people who come into my business and they say, my ambition is to be the youngest partner in PA. I'm gonna be this rank by then and this rank by then. I'm going to be earning this amount of money by the time I'm 30. Just get on with enjoying the job you're doing, because there are so many opportunities in your early career. Go overseas, try something different. Harry, when you and I were chatting about this a few weeks ago, I have this idea of what I call the golf bag analogy, and I've been told off that this is a white middle class analogy. But if you'll forgive me, and I don't play golf, but I kind of understand what golf is. When you're a kid, you go out and you play pitch and putt, and all you need is 2 clubs, and you can bash your way around the fairground, and it's a lot of fun. But if you want to play serious championship golf, you need a whole bag of clubs, and you need a world class caddy who's going to tell you which one to use for each hole. And I think that's what a career is like. As you grow through your career, if you want to be a business leader, you need the whole bag of clubs. I don't know any leader that can say, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I can't help you with that because I know nothing about it. I'm really, really good at finances, but I know nothing about HR, or I'm really really good at program delivery, but I can't manage the commercial management. As a leader, you've got to be able to understand a whole variety of things, and you've got to be reasonably expert at something as well. And there are different shaped careers, of course. And so I think you should treat your career like collecting golf clubs. Every difficult experience you go through, every lesson you learn, you're putting another club in the bag. And then later on in your career, when you're faced with something challenging, you've just got more choice. And when I see colleagues of mine who are struggling, it's often because they've had a very narrow, very fast career, and they've learned to be very, very good at one thing. And then when something unusual or unexpected happens to them, they don't know where to go.
Don't know how to do it because they haven't had that expertise. I mean, yeah, you're right. You should jump into. I mean, if you get the opportunity to take something, I mean, like you. I mean, you literally when you was younger, you took everything, and you still do with both hands, and you use the expertise that you have over what you've built. And that's where you are today. I personally believe, because even when I remember when you said you should have done the Open University as well when you're on spare time and you had 2 kids, and I mean I was completely shocked by it. You had such a busy day as well, and you was getting up really early to go rowing, and I thought you have some, but you still managed to all this pressure, and you still managed to do it all.
Well, yeah, I mean, and so I'm conscious that was a conversation you and I had. So I suppose just to bring that to life. There was that moment in my career where I was. So what had really happened was when you join the military, for example, they had this idea that somebody who didn't go to university and somebody who did go to university would sort of arrive at the same point, captain rank, flight lieutenant at the same time. So a non-graduate would take 6 years to get there, and a graduate would take 3 years to get there. Well, what actually happened, of course, is in those first 3 years, I'd had so much operational experience in the first Gulf War and in RAF Germany during the Cold War that actually I'd started to accelerate my career. So I was racing ahead of the graduates that arrived 3 years later. And that's when I thought, well, actually, the only thing that sets us apart is that they've got a degree and I haven't. So, Open University is something I can do in my own time. So, yeah, it was a matter of, early mornings, late evenings, weekends, so that I could fit the career in during the day and fit the degree, because I was passionate about proving that to myself, that I had both the operational experience and the intellectual capability. I think, when I was very fortunate to get that opportunity to go to uni just for a year, but of course I could step out of my career and I didn't have anything else to think about. My son was 2, my daughter was newly born. The rowing bit, that's about balance as well. Trying to juggle an intensive master's degree during the day and getting up early with a baby and going home to try and get some family time. I needed some balance, something for me, and I was a military officer. I was physically fit. I needed to maintain that fitness. So yeah, I'd get up early with the kids, race down to the riverbank, go rowing on the river for an hour, race into college. I was the only person in the study room till lunchtime because students don't get out of bed till lunch. But it meant I could go home, at 5 o'clock and have tea time with the children and do the family life as well. And that's another thing you learn, is that if you can't get that balance right, the physical bit is it gets rid of stress. The work bit is work, but the family bit is really important, because if you don't invest in that, your family don't support you, and then you can't survive. So that balance is really, really important. So yes, I'm ambitious, and yes, I've worked hard, and I've done more than perhaps you need to, but it pays back.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, reflecting on your career, what careers advice would you have given at the age of anyone of 17? I mean, what did you give your daughter or son?
I think the first thing, you asked me about did I envisage this sort of career? No, I think it's really important to sort of get rid of, they call it imposter syndrome, don't they? That if you haven't come from a privileged background, if you haven't been to a good public school or a really good top university, Russell Group University, it's very easy to think when you walk into a business environment that everybody around you is the old boy network, and sadly in many businesses it is still a male network, and that feeling that you don't belong, that it doesn't matter how good you are, you can't succeed, and that's just not true. If it was ever true, it's being those walls, those old boy networks are being torn down because of our, in business we're so much more aware of inclusivity and diversity. The Black Lives Matter issue that we've just had this year, all of those are signaling that there has to be change in every industry. And so the first thing I would say to my kids is don't have that imposter syndrome. Don't think I can't do this, I'm not good enough to do this. If you want it and you invest in yourself and you work hard, the sky's the limit as to what you can achieve. And there'll always be people out there who see that spark in you and will invest in you and will coach you and will mentor you. And so, that's the first thing. I think the second thing is don't be overly ambitious. And I think the thing that worries me most about, the youngsters in my industry is they are fiercely ambitious. And, we hire talented and ambitious people, of course, but I worry that it's a financial motive. I've got to save this amount of money to buy a house, and I want to be this rich, and I want to have this car, and all the rest of it. And it's self-destructive, because to my golf bag analogy, you might get to the next rank faster than the person next to you, but then you might have a breakdown. Of course. And for some people, for me, it was a quick recovery. I was caught very quickly, but for others, it can take weeks, months, years to recover.
And I feel like you must have dealt with your setbacks that way as well, especially in your career and in your personal mental health.
Yeah, it's true. But I often say to the people around me, in the careers are a marathon, not a sprint. It doesn't help you to be, the youngest executive if 2 years later you've burned out and you've dropped out of your career. If everyone that I work with who's done really well actually has had a really measured, stable path towards
background.
And we've invested in building up experience along the way, and having some opportunities to just enjoy. I took my family to India for a year, and it was part of the job, but packed up the whole family and off we went, and that was an amazing opportunity.
Big decision as well.
Yeah, big decision. And did it directly contribute to my career advancement? No. Did it contribute to my understanding of the world, my ability to work with people from different religions and faiths and different cultural contexts? Of course it did. And so I think my second big bit of advice would be, don't be single-mindedly overly ambitious for the sake of ambition. Pick something you care about. Take your time, value the opportunity to gain new experiences. To try different pathways and tracks. Don't be afraid of moving career if that's what's going to give you the next best opportunity. And as I've found, don't be willing to refresh yourself. Don't get stuck in a rut. Take on a new challenge.
So taking that then, what is more important to you, personal qualities or the qualifications? I mean, most people nowadays believe it's qualifications.
Of course, I think it's, I would say personal qualities, wouldn't I? But of course, there is a baseline level of academic performance for many jobs. I mean, my industry is starting to do non-graduate hire, long overdue. Because we looked around our board and realised that most of us who are senior executives, there's several of us who didn't go to university at 18 years old. Many of us did get degrees later, but so if we didn't go to university at 18, why would we say that everybody has to have a bachelor's degree? It's mad. So we're not doing that anymore. When I was leaving the Air Force and I was getting careers advice, something stuck in my mind from a headhunter. He said, basically, when people are reading a CV, what they want to see is that you're dynamic, successful, and nice.
Yeah.
And I absolutely believe that. Dynamic, somebody that's inspired and inspiring. They've got the energy, the passion to be, part of your industry. They're successful. That they've shown that the things that they do create success. That's not just exam success. That might be, Duke of Edinburgh's award, or working for a charity, or I was in the Scouts when I was a kid, or being the head boy or head girl of your school. There's lots and lots of different signals of success that as recruiters we pay real attention to.
Yeah.
And nice, we want to work with nice people. We all do. And so that that quality coming across in how you interview and and the things that you've been involved in, that's actually what employers look for. And frankly, the qualifications are housekeeping. But of course, if there is a qualification you need, then demonstrating that commitment to work at it and achieve that qualification is part of that dynamism.
And personally, my own thing is I always believe life is quite short, and I feel like any opportunities you want to go for in your personal life or your career, it all adds up. The experience just adds up, and I feel like you should just take every opportunity. Personally, that's why I actually joined the Career Ready program myself, because I just felt that was an opportunity at school that I see, and I just thought, you know what, I want to get on it. But like, what top 3 skills now personally would you say in the field that where you are that you'd need for a future career for someone to be successful?
I made some notes earlier. I'm going to make sure I don't miss any of them. I think the first one, which is becoming much more important, is adaptability. If you just need to look at the newspaper and look at how fast technology is moving, and look at we talk about these disruptive organizations. Uber is sort of bigger than sort of London cabs now. I think Airbnb, the biggest hotel group that doesn't own a single hotel. There's these very disruptive businesses. They are moving very fast. They're changing the face of what industry looks like. Gone are the days. Yeah, gone are the days when you could start your career, spend 30 years getting to be expert in something, and expect that something to still be relevant in your career.
Yeah.
So I work with people in national security who've spent 30 years learning how to build big systems that process data for intelligence. The problem is now they've arrived at that leadership role, all of that stuff's done by Amazon and Microsoft and Google.
Yeah.
So that careers run out. So being adaptable, gaining as many of those golf clubs as you can, so that for every job opportunity you've got more than one skill. So adaptability is my first thing. We talked about it at the beginning, constant learning mindset. You can never stop learning. The world is moving so fast that
even at work you still learn. Even at work.
I mean, before I came on this call, I was writing a paper about the government are doing an integrated review of defence, foreign policy, national security, international development, how to make them all work better together. Now, 5 years ago, that was a defence review. I've spent years understanding how that works, and now I'm going, hang on, I don't understand anything about international development, foreign policy. I need to understand this stuff. I'm still learning. And my third point is reliability. As an employer, we've cut out all the sort of middle management. When I was a youngster, if I ever went to speak to my boss, I'd have to have an appointment. I'd have a slot. I'd get ushered in by his outer office. I'd get my 30-minute window, and when I came out, I'd probably get a blasting for having wasted his time. Whereas now, the youngest member of your staff can walk straight up to you at any point of the day or night, or can call me on Teams about anything they want to chat about. And so, it's a very, very dynamic business environment. We're working at an incredibly fast pace. All the sort of the boundaries and layers have all been broken down. As a partner, I'm working with brand new analysts we've just hired straight from university because they know more about AI and machine learning or quantum physics than I do. But you're looking for people that are reliable. If you ask them to help, you want them to get stuck in and do what they say they'll do, and do it on time, and do it to a quality that means that I don't then have to go and rewrite it, or I go, I can't show that to a client, they'll crucify me. So I think those 3 things: adaptability, constant learning, reliability, they're my big 3.
Definitely. But okay, so in your career or education, what mistakes have you made that you've actually learnt from? Is there one that stands out to you that you regret?
Yeah. This is a tough one.
We are all human. We are all human, like you said, and we all do make mistakes.
Yeah. So late 2016, I'd become a partner. I was running my own business. So I was running a team that was doing very well, and I was asked if I would go to a corporate leadership role and lead the whole global division. So all defence and security, company wide, every country. It was my job was to take it from about 90 million to 100 million. And at the time when it was offered to me, I said, I'm really flattered you've offered it to me. My daughter's doing her A-levels. She hasn't yet gone to university. This is not the right time for me, really. I'd kind of give me a couple of years and I'd love to do it. And they went, no, it's a one-time offer. We really want you to do it now. And so I went, oh, okay then. And the reality was my intuition told me that I wasn't ready for that job. No one had ever done it before because the way the company was organized, the business units were like 30 million, 100 people. I was being asked to lead 270 people, 90 to 100 million. The structure was all different. There was no one in the firm I could talk to that could say, well, this is how we do this, because none of them knew. Every ounce of my intuition was saying this is going to be a nightmare. And it was. I'll sum up how the experience went. 20 months later, they sacked me from that job. I mean, they didn't sack me from the company. I'm now back doing what I love doing, and I've continued to grow my business. I now run a £17.5 million business of my own. So, I'm doing okay.
Doing well.
But as I told, my daughter was home from uni, we were putting up the Christmas tree, and she said, oh, how's things going, Dad? And I said, well, tough, really. I've just been sacked from that leadership role. And after a pause, she looked at me and she said, well, I think that's a good thing, really. She said, because let's face it, you have been a bit of an arse for the last few years. and excuse my French, that summed it up. That job didn't make me happy. It made me tired. It made me irritable. It made me stressed. It made me grumpy with the people I loved around me. It probably made me grumpy with my colleagues. That is my regret. Now, turning back the clock.
Do you reckon that's your bad career decision as well?
Well, I think the bad decision is I have a very, very strong sense of intuition about how things will work, how things will play out, based on experience.
Do you reckon that comes from the military background you had as well?
I think so. I mean, I think part of it's probably innate, but I think part of it is in the military, you're constantly evaluating, if I go left flanking, what's going to happen? What time should we attack?
Always predicting.
You're always predicting what the enemy is going to do and trying to get inside their decision cycle. So yeah, I think I was trained to do that. But my intuition said I wasn't ready for that challenge at that moment in my career, and the evidence says that I was 100% right. If I were going into that role now, I think I'd do very well at it. I think if I turned back the clock and did it again, but did it differently, I think I could do better. I think the thing that I failed to learn was that leading downwards is different to leading upwards. So leading downwards is, leading your team and how you create your role model and the reputation you build and how you build trust with people. That's one set of skills. Yes. How you manage upwards at the top of an organization is a different set of skills.
100%.
My coach said to me, what you're experiencing is the death of innocence. that when you're at the top of an industry, there's a whole lot of other stuff going on.
Always.
Politics, big financial decisions, economic decisions, and you're playing a different game. And you've got to play both because you can't suddenly abandon your team and only worry about your bosses. So yeah, that was probably my bad career decision.
So with your career, you kind of had you had a logic set base behind each career move. I mean, when you was in the military to what you are now, I mean, it kind of flows in, don't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think when I left the Air Force, I wasn't sure why they were giving me certain jobs. It felt like I'd become expert in something and they weren't using that, and that was frustrating me. With hindsight, I now realise what they were giving me was breadth. They were giving me, more clubs to my golf bag. I think the move to industry was for another number of reasons. I mean, it created more family stability. I wasn't moving around the country or the world every 2 years. I let my kids go through school, one school for all of their education. But it also gave me a different set of challenges. But it meant that I could leverage all that experience I had and bring it into industry from a different perspective. So I think they're linked. And I think there are choices to be made as to whether you want to stay in the same career, change employer but stay in the same groove, or if you're happy to sort of jump outside the groove. So I mentor female executives who are trying to help accelerate more women onto the board. And what I say is, if you want to be a deep specialist, you might become the chief technical officer of a company, because you've got to be really, really expert in technology. But if you want to be the chief operating officer, you've got to understand a bit of everything. You've got to understand operations, HR, finance, commercial, technology. You've got to understand all. So there are choices, but you've got to decide what track you're on.
So my last question, and this is pretty much a big one, I think personally, especially for people who want to know, what does it mean to be career ready at 18? And where were you at 18? Were you career ready at 18 as well?
I think I was, but I'm very conscious that not everybody is ready to enter the workplace at 18. When I was an instructor at the military academy at Sandhurst, I saw people like me who joined at 18, people who took a gap year and then joined, people who went to uni but joined straight away, and people who had a gap year and went to uni. There are lots and lots of different ways, and of course now people do apprenticeships and then enter their careers that way. There's no one size fits all. I think don't feel compelled to go down that one route that other people have chosen for you, especially very ambitious parents who think that university is the only route to success, because it isn't. It isn't the only route to success. And let's face it, you can do a degree at any point in your life. I'm thinking about doing a PhD when I retire, because it'll be fun. It'll be great to have the time.
Challenges your mind as well.
To invest in it, exactly. So I think personally I was ready at 18, but I think there are many different paths, and exploring what's right for you is the most important choice.
All right, thank you. So thank you, Nick. It's been great hearing about you and your career. So thank you for that. The next careers conversation will be next week on this at 2:00. We'll be hearing from Susie Donahue, who has a successful army career, who is 29 years of both a regular and reservist. She has also been running her own executive coaching business and is currently working on management consulting for PA Consulting.
Brilliant. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks ever so much.